When we talk about female orgasms, the first thing we need to understand is that arousal isn't just about what's happening in the moment, it's about how the body and brain are working together. A lot of people underestimate just how complex female sexual response really is. Unlike the male orgasm, which tends to be more linear, the female orgasm is influenced by a mix of anatomical, hormonal, psychological, and even emotional factors. So if you've ever felt like it's not as simple as just relaxing, you're absolutely right, it's not. Let's start with anatomy. The clitoris is often thought of as just the small visible part you can see externally, but that's only the tip, literally. It actually extends deep into the pelvis with internal legs or crura that surround the vaginal canal. That means a lot of the internal sensations that feel pleasurable are actually stimulating parts of the clitoris, even if you're not directly touching it. Unfortunately, many people still don't know this, which leads to a lot of misunderstanding around what actually feels good and why. Arousal also causes physical changes in the body. Blood flow increases to the genital area, the vaginal canal lengthens, and natural lubrication starts to build. These changes are essential for pleasurable, comfortable, and satisfying sex. But here's the thing, the brain is just as involved as the body. Mental distractions, stress, shame, or lack of trust can all interfere with arousal and orgasm. That's why emotional safety and open communication with your partner can make such a big difference. Another important point is that orgasms don't always happen in the same way, and that's completely normal. Some women experience orgasms through external stimulation, others through internal stimulation, and many through a combination of both. There's no single right way to orgasm, it's about finding what works for your body, and that often takes time, patience, and exploration. So before we even get into positions, it's essential to understand that creating the right environment, both mentally and physically, is foundational to reaching orgasm. When you really know how your body works and what it responds to, everything else becomes that much more effective. Understanding starts with awareness, and awareness opens the door to pleasure. One of the most important truths in female sexual health, and something I wish more people truly understood, is that clitoral stimulation is absolutely essential for most women to achieve orgasm. We've been fed this idea, in media and even in some educational spaces, that vaginal penetration alone should be enough. But research shows that only about 20–25% of women can orgasm from penetration alone. For the vast majority, direct or indirect clitoral stimulation is what actually gets them there. The clitoris contains over 8,000 nerve endings, more than any other part of the human body, and its only function is pleasure. That should tell us something. It's not something you can ignore or treat like an afterthought. When couples focus only on penetration and skip clitoral stimulation, it's like trying to start a car without turning the key. It just doesn't work the way it's supposed to. And here's where communication becomes really important, because everyone is different. Some women enjoy direct stimulation, some prefer softer or indirect touch, some like rhythmic motion, others need a combination of things. It takes time and communication to figure that out, and that's okay. In fact, taking that time is part of what builds trust and intimacy. Exploring what feels good should never feel rushed, pressured, or based on someone else's expectations. Another thing I always emphasize is that clitoral stimulation doesn't just have to happen before or after penetration, it can happen during as well. Using hands, a vibrator, or even experimenting with different angles or positions that provide pressure to the clitoral area can completely change the experience. That's why the positions we'll talk about today are so impactful, because they're based on how to naturally include clitoral stimulation, not just focus on what feels good for one person. There's no shame in needing clitoral stimulation. In fact, we should celebrate it. The more we normalize conversations around it, the better sexual health outcomes we'll see, not just physically, but emotionally and relationally, too. Pleasure isn't selfish, it's a part of healthy intimacy, and understanding the role of the clitoris is a non-negotiable step toward achieving that. The clitoris isn't optional, it's central, and when it's prioritized, everything changes. If there's one thing that can make or break a sexual experience, especially when we're talking about female orgasm, it's communication. And I don't just mean talking about what you like or don't like during sex. I'm talking about the deeper, ongoing conversations that build safety, trust, and mutual understanding. Because when someone feels emotionally connected and understood, their body is more likely to relax, respond, and ultimately reach orgasm. For many women, arousal begins long before anything physical even starts. It can be influenced by the way a partner speaks to them, how respected and seen they feel, and whether there's space to express desires without fear of judgment. That's why communication isn't just a helpful tool, it's essential. When both partners feel free to ask questions, give feedback, and explore together, it changes the entire dynamic of the sexual experience. It also helps clear up a lot of assumptions. For example, a partner might think that what worked last time will always work, or they might believe that if someone doesn't orgasm, it means something's wrong. Open communication helps shift the focus away from pressure or performance and back onto connection and mutual pleasure. It turns the experience into something shared, not something to be achieved. And communication doesn't have to be serious or clinical. It can be playful, curious, and even flirty. Saying things like, "I love it when you do that," or "try a little more pressure there," are small, simple ways to create a feedback loop that makes both people feel more confident and in tune. When that kind of exchange becomes normal, it leads to better sexual outcomes, especially for women, who are often conditioned not to speak up about their needs. The reality is, you can have all the right techniques, all the anatomical knowledge, and still miss the mark if there's a lack of emotional connection. But when there's trust and communication, even the most basic touch can feel intimate and arousing. That's the power of feeling truly safe and understood with someone. When communication is open and pressure is off, pleasure becomes a shared experience, not a goal, and that's when the magic really happens. Let's talk about positions, specifically the ones that actually work with the female anatomy, not against it. The first one I want to highlight is a modified version of missionary. Now, I know missionary often gets labeled as basic or even boring, but when it's done with a few simple adjustments, it can actually be one of the most effective positions for female orgasm. Here's what makes it different: adding a pillow under the hips. Just that small shift changes the angle of penetration, allowing for better contact with the anterior vaginal wall, which is where many women experience the most pleasure, thanks to structures like the internal clitoral legs and the so-called G-spot area. Elevating the hips helps tilt the pelvis in a way that increases pressure in just the right places. But it's not just about angles. What makes this variation so powerful is that it allows for face-to-face intimacy. That emotional connection we talked about, it's enhanced in this position. You can maintain eye contact, kiss, talk, and stay attuned to each other's reactions. That kind of closeness creates a safer space for exploration and responsiveness, which are both key to reaching orgasm. This position also makes it easy to incorporate clitoral stimulation, whether it's using a hand, a vibrator, or even encouraging a partner to stimulate manually during penetration. It's accessible and doesn't interrupt the rhythm. In fact, for many couples, this is the first position where they're able to successfully combine internal and external stimulation, something that significantly increases the chances of orgasm for many women. And for those who prefer less intensity, the modified missionary offers a lot of control over depth and pace. You or your partner can make small adjustments in movement that tailor the sensation to what feels best. That flexibility makes it ideal for building up arousal gradually, which is especially helpful if orgasm tends to take time or requires consistency. So while it might seem simple on the surface, when you really understand what's happening anatomically and emotionally in this position, it becomes clear why it's so effective. Sometimes, the most powerful changes come from the smallest adjustments, because pleasure is all about alignment, not complication. Another position that consistently supports female orgasm and honestly deserves way more credit is cowgirl, where the receiving partner is on top. What makes this position so effective is the amount of control it offers. Control over depth, speed, rhythm, and angle, all of which are incredibly important when it comes to tailoring stimulation to what actually feels good for your body. When you're on top, you can adjust your movement in real time based on what's working and what's not. That responsiveness helps maintain consistent stimulation, which is crucial for building toward orgasm. And because you're controlling the pace, there's usually less chance of overstimulation or losing the rhythm that feels good, which is something many women struggle with in other positions. The other reason cowgirl works so well is the angle.
In this position, you can lean slightly forward or backward to change how the penis or toy presses against different parts of the vaginal canal. Leaning forward, for example, tends to create more pressure along the front wall of the vagina, which stimulates areas rich in nerve endings, particularly the internal parts of the clitoral network. If you add in a hand or a vibrator for clitoral stimulation at the same time, it creates a dual sensation that can be incredibly effective. This position also encourages a sense of confidence and embodiment. When you're the one guiding the movement, it often feels more empowering. You're not just a participant, you're fully engaged in your own pleasure, which can be a game changer for both physical and psychological arousal. That confidence, paired with the ability to communicate what you want in real time, often leads to deeper connection with your partner and a more satisfying overall experience. And remember, this position isn't just physically effective, it's also a great opportunity to experiment and be playful. Try different angles, speeds, and body positions until you find what feels right. There's no single version of cowgirl that works for everyone, and that's part of what makes it so adaptable. Pleasure thrives when you feel in control of your body, your pace, and your experience, and this position gives you all of that in one. Let's move on to a position that doesn't always get the spotlight but offers something incredibly valuable: intimacy, comfort, and deep stimulation all at once. I'm talking about spooning. This side-by-side position, where both partners lie facing the same direction, creates a close, cozy environment that's not just emotionally connecting, but also physically effective, especially when it comes to building arousal and reaching orgasm. One of the most underrated aspects of this position is how relaxed it allows the body to be. When you're lying on your side, muscles aren't tense, there's no pressure to hold yourself up, and the whole experience can feel slower and more mindful. That state of relaxation is actually a huge factor in arousal for many women. When the nervous system feels safe and at ease, blood flow improves, the body becomes more receptive to stimulation, and orgasm becomes much more accessible. Now, anatomically speaking, spooning creates a shallower angle of penetration, which may seem like a disadvantage at first, but it's actually quite the opposite. The gentler angle allows for more deliberate movement and more precise targeting of the sensitive front wall of the vaginal canal, including the area often associated with the G-spot. And because both hands are free in this position, it opens up space for clitoral stimulation, whether it's self-directed or from your partner. That combination of external and internal stimulation, along with the emotional closeness, can be incredibly powerful. This position is also ideal for slower, more sensual intimacy. It allows for whispered communication, synchronized breathing, and subtle adjustments without breaking connection. It's a reminder that pleasure doesn't have to be fast or intense to be fulfilling. It can be soft, gradual, and emotionally rich. That's especially important for people who find it hard to stay in the moment, or who need more time to reach peak arousal. And just like with the other positions we've talked about, you can modify spooning to suit your needs. A slight lift of the top leg, a pillow between the thighs, or even a gentle backward tilt of the hips can enhance stimulation. It's all about listening to your body and using the closeness to create a rhythm that feels good for you. When comfort and connection are built into the position itself, pleasure often follows naturally. The last position I want to share with you today is one that really harnesses gravity, deep sensation, and external stimulation all at once. Edge of the bed with a standing partner. This position is especially effective for many women because it naturally aligns the pelvis in a way that enhances pressure on the front wall of the vagina, while also keeping the clitoris easily accessible for stimulation. And it's that combination, internal and external, that's so important when it comes to increasing the chances of orgasm. Here's how it works. The receiving partner lies on their back near the edge of the bed, with their hips just at the edge, and feet either on the floor or lifted depending on comfort. The penetrating partner stands or kneels on the floor, which allows for a controlled upward angle of entry. That angle is key because it targets the most sensitive internal zones, including the G-spot region and the internal branches of the clitoral network. What makes this position really shine is its versatility. Because your hands are free, it's easy to incorporate clitoral stimulation using fingers or a vibrator during penetration. That dual stimulation is often the missing link for many women who struggle to reach orgasm through penetration alone. And unlike positions that require a lot of physical effort or balance, this one allows the receiving partner to stay relaxed while remaining fully engaged. This setup also gives the standing partner excellent visibility and control, which makes it easier to adjust depth and rhythm based on what feels good. And just like the other positions we've talked about, communication is still front and center. Whether it's verbal cues or nonverbal feedback, staying in sync and checking in with each other can turn this from just a physically intense experience into one that feels deeply pleasurable and emotionally attuned. You can even enhance stimulation further by placing a small pillow or wedge under the lower back to slightly elevate the pelvis, intensifying contact with the front wall and creating even more pressure where it counts. It's a great example of how small changes in positioning can create a big difference in sensation and satisfaction. When angle, stimulation, and connection come together, orgasm becomes not just possible but powerful.